If you ask Steven Wilson Jr. to define his music, he won't give you a standard Nashville answer. He calls his specific blend of rock and country Death Cab for Country, a nod to the indie rock band Death Cab for Cutie. But his background completely defies the typical origin story of a rising country rock star. He didn't spend his youth playing crowded honky-tonks as a musical prodigy. For years, his professional life was spent entirely inside a food science laboratory, while his free time was spent throwing punches in a boxing ring. To trace how that happened, you have to go back to Seymour, Indiana. Wilson grew up in a household defined by severe financial struggle. He was raised by a single father, while an absent mother trapped in abusive relationships left him profoundly isolated. That environment built a wall around him. He developed a crippling introversion. Standing up in front of a crowd to share his deepest thoughts as a performer was a physical impossibility for the kid he was back then. Recognizing his son's paralyzing stage fright, his father forced a completely unorthodox intervention: competitive boxing. He guided Wilson into the Golden Gloves, an intense annual amateur boxing competition. It was a brutal form of exposure therapy. Stepping into a ring forces a person into ultimate physical vulnerability in front of a live audience. Surviving those bouts successfully rewired his brain, stripping away his terror of crowds. Around the same time, another massive intervention occurred, though this one came through a radio. As a teenager, he heard Tim McGraw's 90s country ballad, Don't Take the Girl. It impacted him completely. The narrative structure of that song, tracking a single relationship from childhood to a hospital room, sparked an immediate fixation on lyricism. He began filling his own notebooks with poetry shortly after. The boxing ring provided the physical nerve to face an audience, and 90s country music provided the desire to actually say something. He had the raw materials for a career, but absolutely no immediate path to put them together. His first attempt at a music career hit a dead end. He played in an early band called Autobahn, but eventually walked away from it. He traded the precarious life of a struggling musician for absolute security. He took a steady job in the research and development department of a food science lab run by Mars, the massive global candy and food corporation. During the day, he thrived in a sterile, scientific environment. But at night, living out in the countryside, he was quietly raising his stepson and filling notebooks with new songs. He married Leigh Nash, the lead singer of the successful pop-rock band Sixpence None the Richer. He had built a remarkably stable, highly conventional life, far removed from the unpredictability of touring. This is where artistic ambition usually quietly disappears. A comfortable corporate salary and a happy domestic routine form a powerful psychological trap, making the risk of a music career seem entirely unnecessary. Then, in 2016, he finally broke the trap. He abandoned the safety of the Mars laboratory entirely, taking a massive gamble to become a full-time staff songwriter at Big Loud, an independent music label in Nashville. On one side, traditional country narrative. On the other, the heavy sonics of 90s grunge. He forced the two to collide. He drew from Soundgarden's alternate tunings and layered the raw energy of Nirvana, fully locking the hybrid genre into place. Looking at Chris Cornell, you see the exact kind of vocal intensity and heavy guitar theory Wilson was adapting for a country audience. By the time he was writing at Big Loud, he had successfully engineered the mechanical engine for his sound, yet he was still missing the definitive, deeply personal narrative required to fuel it. The turning point arrived in September 2018 when his father passed away. This loss carried a crushing weight. His father had been his sole protector throughout a childhood defined by poverty and turbulence, and his death removed the primary anchor of Wilson's life. The profound grief acted as a sudden creative mandate. He completely stopped writing commercial tracks for other artists and began writing solely to process his own trauma. Devastating loss bypasses commercial calculation. He was no longer trying to engineer a radio hit. He was simply surviving, and the resulting songs became the rawest, most undeniable artistic material he had ever produced. This intense period of writing culminated in his 2023 breakthrough. He released the EP Bon Aqua and immediately followed it with his debut full-length record. He titled that debut album Son of Dad. It was a direct, literal homage to the man who catalyzed his existence and pushed him into the boxing ring all those years ago. Looking at the record, the emotional vulnerability required to sing those deeply personal tracks connects straight back to the physical courage he learned taking hits in the amateur ring. At the same time, the meticulous, disciplined structure of his lyrics reflects the years he spent running systematic tests as a food scientist in the Mars R&D department. Steven Wilson Jr.'s arrival as an artist proves that a truly unique voice cannot be manufactured in a studio session. It is only forged by surviving a completely unpredictable, deeply unconventional life.